Imagine waking up one day and realizing that constant ache in your knees and hands could actually go away, without expensive meds, without surgery, just by changing what's on your plate. Sounds impossible? Well, it's not. Research from Harvard Medical School has shown that older adults who switch to an anti-inflammatory diet, packed with fish, olive oil, and leafy greens, dramatically reduce arthritis pain and regain mobility they thought was gone for good. In this video, you'll discover how the right foods can act as your body's natural medicine, and which simple food choices are scientifically tied to less inflammation, more energy, and a lighter, easier life. Stick around until the end, because what you're about to learn today could change how you age, and how you live. Mary Johnson woke up with swollen fingers, that stiff feeling that makes it hard to twist open a jar lid and steals the joy from simple tasks. She didn't make a fuss. She cupped her hands around her coffee mug, took a deep breath, and told herself it was just part of getting older. Breakfast went as usual: white bread, margarine, and a generous spoonful of sugar in her coffee. It felt comforting, but left behind a heaviness in her joints that she was starting to recognize all too well. She'd held on to habits built over decades. Lunch meant fried meat and soda. In the afternoon, a cream-filled cookie to hold her over. Dessert at night. Everything was convenient, everything was quick. But her body kept track of every choice. Her knees protested when she stood up from the couch. Her hands lost their grip on simple things like opening a package. The discomfort always showed up strongest after heavier meals, as if her body were begging for a break. Mary tried to keep up with her household routine. She enjoyed folding laundry, organizing drawers, watering the plants. Some days, her patience outlasted the pain. Other days, fatigue won out, and she'd sit down, massaging her fingers, waiting for the stiffness to ease. Her grandson would call to invite her for a card game. She loved it. Sometimes she'd say yes, other times, she'd put it off, promising to join next week. She rarely talked about the pain. She worried that mentioning it would make her seem fragile. She reminded herself she'd always been strong, that she'd gotten through tough times before. She compared her hands now, stiff and slow, with how they used to be, steady, nimble, ready for anything. The difference saddened her, but she kept moving forward, trying to stay cheerful. She held on to happy memories to balance out her body's complaints. On certain days, the discomfort came earlier. Just a rushed lunch with sausage or ham was enough to bring back the stiffness. She noticed the pattern, even if she didn't say it out loud. She felt her fingers swell after weekend sweets. She heard her knees crack when she overdid it on fried foods. She tucked away these clues like secret notes scribbled in the corner of her mind. Family members would suggest she rest a bit or take the weight off her legs. Mary appreciated their concern. She preferred simple fixes: a cushion, a cup of tea, some cream on her hands. She wasn't stubborn, she was just tired of making pain the center of every conversation. She avoided complicated articles, confusing terms, anything that made her feel lost. She wanted clarity, practical steps, something that fit easily into her daily life. One incident stood out that week. After a lunch with soda and dessert, her fingers felt like they were squeezed into tight rings. She tried to open a jar and couldn't. She smiled so she wouldn't cry. Grabbed a dish towel for help, twisted carefully, and finally got it open. She felt a small victory, followed by a nagging thought: why does this kind of pain show up after certain meals? The question grew quietly inside her. Mary had always loved cooking for her family, but over time, convenience took priority. Frozen meals became her shortcut. Jarred sauces, another. Salt stayed within reach to boost flavor. These were honest choices, shaped by her daily rhythm. Still, her body pushed back. With every restless night and every stiffer morning, she gathered pieces of a puzzle that was finally starting to come together. One ordinary afternoon, she opened an old box filled with photos of herself chasing her kids around the backyard. In the pictures, her hands were free, her knees strong, her smile wide open. She felt a pang, not of sadness, but of longing. A longing to reclaim some of that lightness. She carefully put the photos away, looked toward the kitchen, and thought about what she'd eaten that day. Then she thought about how she'd felt. During video calls with her friend Evelyn, the conversation always drifted toward the aches of aging. Evelyn spoke plainly, without sugarcoating anything. She said she also noticed things got worse after sweets and processed meats. Mary listened closely. For the first time, she admitted there was a pattern. She didn't promise immediate change, she simply decided to pay closer attention. She put her curiosity to work in her favor. That night, she went to bed earlier. Before closing her eyes, she mentally reviewed the past few weeks, foods, mealtimes, how her body reacted. The puzzle pieces no longer seemed scattered. Something was connecting the dots clearly enough to raise a quiet alarm. Mary didn't panic. She made a simple promise to herself: pay attention. She wanted to understand her own body honestly. The first step had been taken. Do you have joint pain and assume it's just part of getting older? Be careful. Often, it's not time that weakens the body, it's the food we put on our plates every day. What you eat might be feeding your pain without you even realizing it. You're watching Life Guidance After 60, a channel created especially to offer advice and real-life stories for people over 60. Since we're a new channel, we need your help. Please hit like and subscribe to stay updated with our upcoming stories. Mary walked into Dr. Thomas Miller's office carrying the weight of her unanswered questions in her eyes. He listened carefully as she described the persistent pain in her knees and fingers. He asked her to show him what she'd been eating over the past few days. Mary listed it off: sodas, processed meats, fried foods, sugary desserts, and ready-made sauces. He took a deep breath and said, firmly but without judgment, "Mary, the problem is feeding your own pain." The words hung in the quiet room, both heavy and illuminating. He explained that certain foods act like fuel for inflammation, carrying substances that trigger the release of inflammatory cytokines and wear down already vulnerable joints. Dr. Miller referenced a study published in the Journal of Clinical Rheumatology. Patients with rheumatoid arthritis who consumed large amounts of ultra-processed foods and saturated fats reported significantly more pain flare-ups and fatigue. He pointed to the evidence: diets high in processed items, like deli meats, fast food, and packaged cookies, were linked to worsening symptoms over months of follow-up. Reference: Journal of Clinical Rheumatology, Cohort Study on Inflammatory Diets and Rheumatoid Arthritis. He also explained the role of salt and processed meats. Excess sodium causes fluid retention, worsening joint swelling. Processed meats contain nitrites and oxidative compounds that increase cellular stress in cartilage. Mary felt a chill run down her spine. The doctor went on to say that cutting back on these dietary triggers can lead to measurable drops in inflammatory markers, like C-reactive protein, and noticeable symptom improvement. In other words, there was scientific confirmation for what she'd already sensed in her own body. As he spoke, Mary noticed the light in his eyes, a mix of compassion and conviction. When she left the office, she carried more than medical advice, she carried hope. She knew she'd have to face her old habits, but now she understood that her pain had an address: it was on her plate. How many times have you blamed aging for a pain that might actually be coming from your diet? Just like Mary, thousands of people unknowingly inflame their own bodies every day. What you eat today can determine how you move tomorrow. Choosing wisely what goes on your plate is the first step toward taking care of your health and giving your body back its freedom. Mary woke up determined. After her talk with Dr. Thomas Miller, something inside her had shifted. She began watching everything she put on her plate as if solving an old mystery. Her first cut was bold: sweets. Sugar had seemed harmless, but now she knew it was one of inflammation's main fuels. In its place, she chose fruit. That first bite of a fresh blueberry felt almost symbolic, a silent pact between body and mind. The first week was tough. Grocery store shelves were full of familiar temptations. But Mary no longer saw food the same way. She'd look at a pack of cookies and remember the doctor's words, "Every ultra-processed ingredient is a small attack on your body." That's when she decided her new routine wouldn't be about restrictions, but smart swaps. Her fridge started to look different. The space once filled with sodas now held fresh juices. Extra virgin olive oil replaced margarine. Salt was used more sparingly. And for the first time, fish became the star of her lunch: salmon, sardines, mackerel, all rich in omega-3, a natural anti-inflammatory. In the days that followed, Mary began to notice a subtle shift. The swelling in her hands wasn't as bad, and tying her shoes felt less like a chore. It wasn't magic, it was her body responding to change. A study published in Annals of the Rheumatic Diseases confirmed exactly that. Women who ate omega-3 rich fish at least twice a week had a 35% lower risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis. The same study showed that those already living with the condition reported significantly less morning stiffness and pain after just 8 weeks on an adjusted diet. Mary started jotting down small wins. She kept a blue-covered notebook in the kitchen and wrote things like, "Today I opened the jam jar without pain. Another day, I combed my hair without my fingers locking up." Small gestures, yes, but each one felt like a victory. Her body was starting to thank her. By the end of the second week, she added berries to her diet: strawberries, blackberries, cherries. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have found that eating these fruits lowers inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6, which are responsible for cartilage breakdown. Their natural pigments, called anthocyanins, also help neutralize free radicals, protecting joint tissue. Mary didn't remember the technical terms, but she felt the results. She slept better and woke up with more energy. Soon, trips to the grocery store became a pleasure. She spent more time in the produce section and less in the aisles of ready-made products. Her cart filled with spinach, kale, broccoli, arugula. Vegetables that, according to a University of East Anglia study, contain compounds capable of blocking enzymes that destroy cartilage, like sulforaphane, found in broccoli. The research showed that regularly eating these vegetables can reduce the risk of joint degeneration by up to 30%. Mary's meals started to look more colorful. Her plate seemed alive. The green of leafy vegetables contrasted with the red of berries and the golden sheen of olive oil. The taste was different, but what struck her most was the feeling of lightness after eating: no heavy stomach, no stiffness when standing up from the table. It was as if her body could finally breathe a sigh of relief. One day, her grandson Ryan showed up unannounced. He found his grandmother slicing tomatoes and laughing to herself. "Grandma, what's so funny?" he asked. She smiled and replied, "I'm cooking, and for the first time in years, my hands don't hurt." Ryan didn't grasp the full weight of that sentence, but Mary did. It was freedom. She started walking in the park again. At first, short and slow, but full of meaning. With every lap, she remembered how much she'd underestimated the power of food. In an article from Harvard Health Publishing, she read that anti-inflammatory diets rich in fish, olive oil, and greens don't just ease arthritis, they also improve circulation, mood, and sleep. It all made sense. Her body seemed to have found a new rhythm. At dinner, olive oil became a ritual, a drizzle over salads, another over roasted vegetables. Oleocanthal, a compound in olive oil, has properties similar to mild anti-inflammatories, according to research from the University of Pennsylvania. Mary didn't know the term, but she felt the effect: less pain, more movement. 3 months later, the blue notebook was full. Every page was living proof that transformation comes from within. The hands that once trembled now held a pencil firmly. Her handwriting had more strength. The letters seemed to dance across the page, freed from the stiffness that once controlled them. Mary realized this wasn't just about changing her menu. It was about reclaiming the independence she thought she'd lost. She discovered that when the body is treated with respect, it responds with gratitude. The constant pain had become occasional. The fatigue had lightened. Hope had grown stronger. She didn't consider herself cured, but she felt alive again. As she prepared dinner, she'd remember the doctor's words and smile. The same plate that once fed her pain was now a source of healing. What once seemed impossible had become real, and Mary, through her own choices, was writing a new story in her very skin. Mary changed, and what about you? She chose to care for her body through what she put on her plate, and the result was freedom, lightness, and renewed life. You can take that step today, too. Every meal is a choice. You either feed the pain, or you feed the healing. Mary sat on the porch, watching the end of the day. Her body felt different. Her hands, once stiff and sore, now moved with ease. There was a quiet calm she hadn't felt in years. Every movement, holding a cup, turning a page, watering the plants, felt like a small celebration. It wasn't just the absence of pain, it was the feeling of being in control. After so long, she finally felt like she was back in charge of her own body. One morning, when visiting Dr. Thomas Miller, she brought the blue notebook with her. She showed him her notes with a smile that mixed pride and curiosity. He read a few lines and confirmed what she'd already sensed: these improvements line up exactly with what science has been showing. He went on to explain that studies from Harvard University and the National Institutes of Health have proven the direct impact of diet on inflammatory markers in the blood. Patients who adopt diets rich in omega-3s, berries, and leafy greens report fewer arthritis flare-ups and better quality of life. Mary listened carefully. The doctor emphasized that 24% of patients with rheumatoid arthritis notice clear improvement just by adjusting their diet, and that among the most beneficial foods were spinach, blueberries, and extra virgin olive oil, all now staples in her routine. "You're living proof that food can be medicine," he told her. The words echoed in her mind all the way home. In the days that followed, she found herself reflecting on what it all meant. For years, she'd believed aging automatically meant pain, that physical limits were unavoidable. Now, she saw her own story in a new light. Her body wasn't just aging, it was responding. She learned that what we feed ourselves, whether food, thoughts, or emotions, shapes how our body handles time. Mary didn't become extreme. She still enjoyed a slice of cake at birthdays or a piece of bread at a special lunch. But now she did so with awareness. She knew what it might trigger and how to balance it afterward. Pleasure was no longer guilt, it was a conscious choice. This new relationship with food brought a calm that touched everything, even her mood had shifted. One Sunday, Ryan came to visit. He found his grandmother smiling in the kitchen, mixing olive oil with fresh greens. "Grandma, you seem different," he said. She laughed and replied, "I feel different. I've learned that what I put on my plate decides how I live my days." Ryan didn't fully understand, but he was glad to see the new sparkle in her eyes. Mary also rediscovered simple joys. She returned to walking among the park trees, something she'd given up out of fear of pain. She greeted old friends, swapped recipes, and shared what she'd learned. She became a go-to person among her friends, who wanted to know how she seemed so much lighter. She explained without mystery, "The change started in my kitchen." One afternoon, while making dinner, she realized she was listening to music, something she hadn't done in a long time. The house felt alive again. The scent of warm olive oil mingled with fresh herbs, and every meal felt like a small victory. As she sat down to eat, she thought back to the days when pain ruled her life and realized how often she'd blamed time, when all along, she just needed to pay attention to what was feeding her body. Mary understood that aging isn't the enemy, it's a mirror of our choices. Every bite can be an act of destruction or healing. And even a tired body has an incredible ability to renew itself when given the right care. Arthritis was still there, but tamed, quiet, almost invisible. Before bed, she flipped through the blue notebook and added one final note: "I've learned that aging is a privilege, and that food can be the bridge between pain and freedom." She closed the notebook, looked at her hands, and smiled. It was a different kind of smile, not one of victory, but of peace. The kind that comes from understanding that health isn't just about pills or diagnoses, but about repeated choices, small sacrifices, and simple decisions that shape tomorrow. Mary fell asleep with a rare serenity, knowing she'd become an example, not because she'd beaten arthritis, but because she'd learned to care for herself with awareness and love. And somehow, in that quiet stillness, she felt her body thanking her. Our channel was created to share meaningful guidance and reflections for those living the best chapter of life, after 60. We're just beginning this journey, and we need your support to grow. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and help spread these messages of inspiration.